Hi, my name is Adrian Tyler, and this is my EDGR 535 class, and I'm talking about debunking myths. So, in our studies, we have been looking at neuroscience and how there are common misconceptions about how the brain works. So, neuromyths are misconceptions about how the mind and brain functions, and they're used so often that people, including those who have studied neuroscience, are prone to believing these myths as facts. A new study that was done by a multidisciplinary group of people from Harvard, U of H, Yale, you name it, from these prestigious schools, they came up with this report about debunking these myths. Intriguingly, both the general population and those in mind-brain science had exceptionally high numbers of believing the most 8 common myths. Where the myth that I'm talking about today is the left brain and right brain. We hear that one quite a bit. I hear that a lot in my own school, amongst kids, amongst other educators, just kind of in general. In the study, the general population surveyed and endorsed, and the people that endorsed the greatest number of neuromyths in our general population was about 68%. As the study started to look at who else took the survey, educators who endorsed neuromyths, the number was somewhere around 56%. And surprisingly, a significant number of people, and this group was kind of high for a neuroscience group, it was around 46%. And I think a lot of the reasons that these groups believe these myths is because they've just been passed down, just like traditions. People just tend to start believing without fact. All right, so the 2 most common neuromyths were related to learning styles and dyslexia. So let me talk a little bit about learning styles. I'm a teacher, so learning styles can vary from the creative, the tactile learner, the kinesthetic learner, the audio learner, the visual learner. And oftentimes we can see someone who's very artist or creative like, and they want to say, oh, they work with the left brain. And then see someone who's academically seemingly more intelligent, and we'll often try to pinpoint that person who thinks with the right side of the brain. I know in my experience, most people will say, such and such thinks with the left side of their brain, and that's why they draw so well. And then someone who thinks with the right side of the brain, that's why they do math so well, they're so intelligent. Well, that's just not true. All right, because effort has a lot to do with what we're capable of doing, and along with a set of genes. All right, so according to Carey, a brain is a brain is a brain. So that means that our brains are all just alike. No one has a different brain, and healthy brains all function the exact same way. The left and right side of our brains do different functions, but they work together. In fact, there's a third part of our brain called the hippocampus, which it functions as a reservoir for forming new memories, which allows our left brain and right brain to keep communicating, but it makes that connection with the hippocampus. Also, according to Debunking Neuromyths, there is not strong evidence that people's learnings differ in important ways based on one hemisphere being more dominant than the other. So there is some belief that the one side is greater than the other, but it doesn't actually mean that you are one-sided in your brain. Your brain functions at 100%. In reading, we learned that Carey states that the left hemisphere brain is the intellectual side and the wordsmith, and the right side is intelligence. These thoughts have been proven to be infallible or fallible. We don't have 2 brains, we have one. So our brain hemispheres work together in unity. What is accurate about the neuromyth is people do have a right and left side of the brain. That's true. Physically, that's what we have. What's not true is that our learning styles are not indicated by the right or the left side of our brains. We learn differently, but we all have a brain that learns the same way. Students who excel in creative arts are not left-brained, and those who excel in more academia, they're not right-brained. It's just they have a good eye. According to Carey, their brains are just a little bit more wired to take in contextual clues and hints a little bit better than others. It doesn't mean that they're smarter or that they're less smart because they don't exhibit much talent in one particular area. Educators in neuroscience training have appropriated this myth to define how students learn. We're trying to change that right now. Educators see students as creative, and that's a problem because that person can also be just as intelligent in the maths and sciences, as well as fine arts and creative and visual arts. Ultimately, these myths can cause educators to put students in a stereotype box and students not reach their full potential, and that's what we call a bias. So the study of neuroscience is important to educators. It's relevant because professionally, as stated by authors Hook and Farah, the Neuroethics Journal says that scientifically this method is important because it allows teachers and educators to be aware of how they're teaching and how their students are learning. And all in all, I would say that the neuromyths piece has been very interesting to review, and just keep in mind that neuromyth that we're left side and right side is inaccurate. We think with our whole brain and we use it at 100%. Thank you for your time and the information I'm getting from this class. Goodbye.